Everybody, hello and welcome to Popcorn Culture. My name is Ben Carlin and I am your host. Here with me today is my brother Jay, who will be in every episode.
Hey, that's me, Ben. Look, I'm wearing pants today. Can you believe it?
I can't even believe it.
Wow.
Is this a segue to something else? Or
no, not really. I just noticed today when I was getting ready that like I actually packed jeans to wear to the office because we go to the workouts in the morning and then I'll like pack a bag and. I realized recently that I haven't worn like non-athletic pants to work in like over a month because we were doing the walkathon for a while.
Yes.
And so it was like, well, I'm just wearing shorts because they're easier to walk in, or I'll wear like some joggers or some sweatpants or something. But so like slowly over the last month, like typically I've got several, pairs of pants in the laundry that are, working their way through rotation, excuse me. And like over the past, month or so, all of those have just become clean. And like my pants drawer is just like bursting with pants. I was like, I don't think I realized how many pants I owned.
Bursting with pants could be the title of today's episode so easily. People are going to be like, what?
What?
Also,
Bursting
I felt like you let in because like some people do watch like the YouTube version of the show, which is like on video. So if you ever want to see like what we're physically doing and talking about and wearing or whatever, then you can do that.
Yeah.
However, for those just listeners out in their car, you leading off with like, hey, I'm wearing pants today.
Yeah.
I bet somebody like choked on their coffee and was like, hang on now.
Yeah, what?
Is he normally not
Normally,
wearing
I've
pants?
just been wearing shorts a lot recently.
Well, you have been stepping like an absolute madman.
Yeah.
And you have done the thing. You have ascended beyond stepping merely for step challenges, and you are stepping for yourself.
Stepping for myself, Ben. That's right. So I haven't been hitting the 30,000 step mark, which was becoming the custom during the actual competition.
Very impressive.
Which, but I have continued stepping. So I've been landing somewhere between 10 and 20. On most days.
Yes.
Which is good. I don't know if I have a particular goal, but just that I am turning on the treadmill every day feels good.
Yes, indeed. Actually, on that very note, I am excited. I'm not going to give the full fledged announcement.
The full fledged.
Fledged is kind of like one of those words that can be like a little. It's like scab. Fledge.
Because it's like a fledgling.
I don't know. Maybe.
That's like a baby bird. Right? Maybe it draws up images of small fowl.
Thank you for using foul. I agree. I would say this entire conversation right now is a foul on to the ears. However, fledgling process. I don't even know how or why I used that word in the first place. Now, we have talked a lot about the step competitions, and it is something that we typically are doing throughout the warmer months of the year with our like through Discord and Patreon and all the rest. However, the entire Super Carlin Brothers brand is going to be hosting a free to participate, open to the general public step competition starting on June 1st. So be sure if you have ever like heard us talk about this and you're like, I don't know if I can quite swing the Patreon, we totally understand, no problem. And so we did want to host a like audience wide, everybody who wants to get out there and do some stepping in the warmer months of the year. So keep your ear to the ground for details on that, because an announcement is coming very, very soon.
Yes, it is. We've been working on it. It's been fun. I'm very excited to launch it on, Ben, you know what? On the exact flip end side of this, where we've done lots of preparation and feel like well equipped to handle the oncoming step competition, I think.
Are you about to address the elephant in the room?
I don't know if I would call it an elephant.
Well,
maybe the fledgling in the room.
Oh, okay. No. Yeah, the small baby bird, which cannot feed itself.
Okay, so let's address the numbers.
Oh, you're doing it.
I know, we're doing the thing.
I know. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little like, I'm clammy just thinking
You're
about
clammy?
it. Clammy, another word that feels uncomfortable. It's like it's like the one true like word for what it means. Like clamminess. It's like, people get it. People are feeling clammy just because I'm talking about clammy.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
Anyway.
So If you've been listening to the pop for a while, you will no doubt remember that for a period of time, in the middle of any given episode, we might just give you a random stream of numbers that we would completely not address or acknowledge in any way.
Yes. So it was just basically like for like months, you would be like, "Hey Ben, how about some numbers?" And it would be like, "Okay."
Yeah.
And then you would read some numbers, and then it would just be like, "Okay, now we're moving on."
Next.
And so this was like one of those things where I think that we got to experience, because like what we do, like the reason that you may be listening to our voices in the first place is because we make fan theories for a living for Super Carlin Brothers.
Yeah.
That's like our primary job other than the podcast here. And through that, we go through works of fiction from other people, and we try to connect dots that may or may not have been intentional in the first place. And I've always thought that it was very interesting to imagine what it must be like to be the author of this information and potentially stumble across any of these fan theories about any of the different fandoms that we cover and be like, wow, okay, what they came up with is pretty clever. I didn't mean to do that at all, but
here we are.
But here we are. We found something. And the numbers, I think, was really like our first foray, if you will, into maybe providing something that the audience, that someone at home could take and see if they couldn't find meaning in. And I think that now is the moment where you can explain the meaning of the numbers.
So let's talk about what the numbers were, what the hopes and dreams were, how it developed over time. I am having a weird issue. I had all these notes about it, and I had put a link to a different Google Doc in this one, and as I'm trying to open it, it's like, what app would you like to open this Google Doc in? I'm like,
Google Docs!
This one. It's like, can you sign in? I'm like, no. Hold on. Let me see if I can't pull it up. Alternatively,
how about some light elevator music?
Here we go. Bam. It's open. Okay, so anyway, when we started doing the numbers, so if you've listened to the show for a long time, you may be aware that I personally am just a fan of neutral chaos.
Yeah. I'm glad you went for neutral and didn't try to claim like good.
Yeah.
Like, is that what is the
chaotic
metric?
neutral? That's the alignment in like D&D.
Right. Well, what would be the good version of that? Like just chaotic good?
Like chaotic lawful?
Lawful.
Yeah.
Okay,
no, chaotic good, I think is it.
Okay.
It'd be lawful
right,
good.
Lawful, right.
Yeah, chaotic good.
I'm chaotic.
Or chaotic evil.
Gosh,
yeah.
chaotic lawful just sounds like a really unusual law firm.
Yeah.
Where it's like we're great at what we do, but our practices very unorthodox.
All over the place,
Yeah.
man. All over the place.
Anything goes.
Yeah. So, but like, you'll like in high school, for example, we've talked before about like our antics with the GMA, where we printed out these little stickers and would just put the stickers all over the school. For literally no rhyme or reason.
Yes.
Just to like watch the effect of what would happen to the school. And it was so funny watching people like try and figure out like, what does this mean? What is the Green Mallet Association? Why are these duck stickers all over the place? Like we're slipping them in people's lockers. You know, you'd stick it on someone's backpack. They wouldn't realize all day and people would think they were in on it.
Oh yeah.
You know, it would just be on your desk. It was so funny to watch. And the answer was nothing. There was nothing behind it at all.
It was like, yeah. And I think that's really like the fun of it is just basically it was so innocuous. It was so harmless.
Yeah.
But it was really, 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 really fun to be the people who got to be on the end.
Who knew.
Yeah, exactly. So it was, and I mean, then it also just became a fun game to figure out where we could put them.
Yeah.
And I the one that I always remembered was I think there was like a little I don't know if it was like a it wasn't like a fire alarm, but it was like a light that would flash or something in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
And I think we stuck one like vertically on top of it, so it would like face the ceiling, and it was also like maybe 10 feet off the ground, and I feel like all you could ever really see is like the edge of like the piece of paper that like stuck up. And it was like, but like it was there for like 3 years. You know, it was like No, I mean, why would anybody ever be up there to touch it?
I think as well that I want to say John would randomly slip them in just like rogue library books.
Oh,
You know, so it is possible to me that like if you were at Cave Spring High School, where we are not notable alumni on Wikipedia, you could flip through random pages and potentially still find an original GMA sticker, or paper just like lodged in the pages of a random book that no one would ever check out, because why would you?
Because why would you? Yeah. I like to think that it's like a book about like Bigfoot or something.
Yes, sure. I think I doubt we have many listeners at Cave Spring High, but if we do, and you find one, boy howdy, please tell me. That would be amazing. It would bring such joy to my heart to know that they were still lingering out there.
I know, like somehow, some way, that would be incredible. Lasted through the ages.
I know, that would be amazing. Similarly, one of my we talk about Survivor a lot on the show. One of my favorite moves of all time came from a player named Russell, and this was probably more like chaotic evil than chaotic neutral. But
I would say so.
Yeah, because he's a pretty aggressive player in the game. But his move, once upon a time, was literally just to take the machete, which the tribe was given, and just like buried it in the sand somewhere while no one was looking. And then it was so interesting to watch like this effect like on the tribe, because everyone's like freaking out, like, where's the machete, where is it? And you know, he's just playing along like, I don't know, but he did know. And it was like this weird like power it gave him, even though he continued to suffer from lack of machete as well.
Right.
It was somehow like, even though it was happening to everyone, the fact that he had caused it gave him like a certain amount of control, which doesn't make sense because he was also suffering and like no one knew he did it.
Right.
But like he didn't really have to suffer the chaos of it because he knew the truth, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, there's a helplessness that comes from not like realizing that like one of your lifelines, like one of the only tools that you have at your disposal, is now missing.
Yeah.
And so like the fact that like it's like, well, if it's gone, it's gone. There is no recovering it. You know, it's like that comes with helplessness.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, if you know exactly where it is the entire time, it does. I can see where like the mental manipulation is massive.
Yeah. It was what. So anyway, these are the kind of things that I love watching stuff like that unfold. So when we initially started the numbers, it was literally just that there was no rhyme or reason to the numbers at the beginning. I just thought it would be fun to randomly give people a string of numbers as if there was meaning attached and see what happened.
Right. So in the true beginning, like the first time you ever did it,
yes,
there was because I know that as time went on, the numbers did have codes that you were baking into them, and you did have like a funny. And of course 99.
Yeah.
And I feel like the 99 continuously kept being like your control number.
Yeah.
That was like helping give hints as to what the other numbers could potentially mean.
Right. So part of my strategy of making it feel like there was more meaning to it than there was always ending the numbers with 99.
Right.
Thus giving like the illusion that it was all connected and part of something greater. So people, and this was so as ever, like it was part of the fun was just seeing what happened. And as ever, like what was so cool to watch is that like people, little kernels out there, like some people really leaned in and tried to start solving like what the numbers were. I know there was like posts on Reddit for a while about people trying to figure out, and then I think on our unofficial website, littlekernels.com,
yes,
there was like a page dedicated to the numbers. And then there was a Discord server dedicated to solving the numbers that people were joining. And
it's just amazing. Yeah.
It was amazing to see it start coming through. So as we continue to just sort of put complete chaos out there, we were also developing the idea for the challenge coins for the Patreon exclusive merch.
Yeah, so they were not really like connected ideas in any way, shape, or form. It was like we knew we wanted to do the challenge coin. We knew it would be super fun to have this thing that we could like. It's almost like a membership card, if you will. It was like, like that'd be like such a fun thing. Like, and people carry challenge coins, like, and I think the more we learned about them, the more it was kind of like, okay, like that's a really cool thing that we could do. But then like, as we're simultaneously designing the coins themselves, we're like, is there any way we could like merge these two concepts in some capacity?
Because like our whole, like, you know, when we're on the main channel, so much of what we're doing is like finding Easter eggs and connecting dots. So it's like, what if we just created for real like Easter eggs that you could then connect to some end?
Yes.
And we didn't, like, it was such a vague idea, but what I also didn't, so while it was super fun watching people try and solve the numbers, and while we sort of had this idea, the chaosness of it also seemed to start spreading in unfound directions where other people had different agendas attached to the chaos, where like so me and Ben were talking about like developing a game around the numbers, just like one-on-one, and I think I'd started putting clues in the numbers before I even told Ben.
Yes. So, yeah. Like literally, like he was like reading off the numbers, and like me sitting here like co-hosting the show, and like I don't know where he's going with this. Yeah. Like, you know, like I'm like, this is not like, I'm not in cahoots right now. I am too in the dark.
You can see the fun I was having.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was like pure joy.
Meanwhile, then Ethan, the editor, also unbeknownst to him that maybe there was a greater plan surrounding the numbers, he also just assumed it was complete chaos. And so he started interjecting his own layers of things to it that I didn't even know about. So like, for example, we would read the numbers and then normally we would cut to transition.
Yeah.
And Ethan was just having like total fun with it. And he would sometimes play, like after the numbers, play the transition music like in reverse. Or he would add like a different color background to the transition than was usual.
Right.
And it was just like his layer of messing with people, like, what does this mean? What's it gonna do? And like, I didn't know that until it was like 4 weeks in that he was doing that.
Right. So this is,
and I was like, oh wait, now I've been doing my own thing and I wasn't accounting for the puzzle pieces you were throwing into the equation.
Compounding chaos.
Yeah. Oh no. So anyway, back in the Discord server, people eventually I did start like encoding the numbers specifically, and I realized that because I kept ending them with 99, I could start manipulating the final number as it related to the number 99 as like the way in which you might solve the rest of the numbers.
Right. Yes.
Okay. So for example, in one particular episode, I think the very first one where it was like maybe there needs to be like a clue or something. Yeah, okay, this was the first. I think the episode was called Code Word Apples, which was also just confusing because we didn't plan that at all. The numbers I read out were 2, 9, 22, 15, 21, 4, 16, 14, 6, 20, and 100. But I paused before I said 100 and was like, wait, that can't be right.
Okay.
So that was like the tip that like, wait, there's something different this time.
Okay.
And what you basically had to do was just subtract 1 from 100, which would get you to 99. So if you subtracted 1 from every number, then they would all correlate to different letters of the alphabet, and that would spell out the phrase "a hunt comes." But I think I actually did the numbers wrong because I think it spelled like instead of hunt, it was like humped comes or something.
Oh no,
humped comes or something. Like one of the letters was wrong, but people understood what it was supposed to say instead. Or maybe that wasn't.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a...
Okay, so that's what it was. That the first time it said "a hunt comes." So like people figured that out, and then the next week I did the same thing. I did the same trick, except instead of I multiplied everything by 2. So if you divided by 2, so the final number was 198, which is 99 times 2. So if you divided everything by 2, then you would get to the appropriate numbers, which again said "a hunt comes." So it was like that's the one I misspelled.
Nice.
Yeah, so people figured that out. That was really impressive. And so that was supposed to be telling people like, oh, guess what? Yes, something is coming if you've been leaned in enough to figure this out. But of course, this wasn't the first set of numbers, so people were like going back to the old ones to see if they meant anything, which they didn't, which is maybe confusing. Especially when you mixed in like the music and the colors and stuff like that. It was just extra nonsense. And then that episode was called Code Word Apples, and it was like, is that like a cipher or something? And it was like, we just happened to talk about apples, and that happened to be the title, and Kat and Ethan settled on the title, and they didn't know anything about the numbers, so that threw another layer into it.
Yep. So it was really just becoming more and more and more ridiculous.
Yeah. But so the overall plan was for when the coin came out, it would have some clues on it, and you would be able to go back, and I think we were going to include like a slip of paper or something that like pointed you to one of the first episodes with the numbers.
I'm not gonna lie, yeah, this is where things started getting very complicated.
Yeah,
because we're like, okay, so we're doing the coin no matter what. Like we knew that.
Yeah,
but then we were also like, okay, what if we made it like a digital escape room of some kind?
Yeah,
but we didn't even tell anybody that it was happening. And then Jay also has been doing this weird numbers thing anyway. So like we've sort of laid some groundwork for the possibility of this being a thing. But okay, so how would the rest of it work, or can we like retcon any of the existing information into our game? And do we tell people, and how do they know? And like, what's the outcome? And so like we had sort of like started borrowing concepts from like a bunch of different areas, but like, you know, Ready Player One has like the scoreboard in the sky or whatever of the Oasis. And so we were like, okay, so like one thing we could do is potentially just have like this weird meandering path through the internet using various clues that could eventually just put your name on a scoreboard,
right?
You know, and it would just sort of be like a public facing, like who will get there first. And and the idea was really like we will never tell anybody about it at all,
right?
We just want to see if anybody will find it. And so that was like this like highly complex plan that we were sort of like attempting to figure out, but then also trying to figure out like through, because that's the other thing too, is that like we're not game developers, we're not coin manufacturers. So then you're also like trying to find like the actual limitations of like the printing process as well. Like what can be included? How can we do it?
How can we tip people off to begin with? Like maybe if you just wrote off the numbers, like how can you still be included or something?
Yes.
But so and I think even one of the eventual clues I gave was clue on coin. Like if you deciphered the numbers that particular week, that was the clue. Right. And so that would have been like okay, now I know when I get the coin, maybe there will be something on there. And in fact, some of the Easter eggs from this idea still made it onto the coin.
Made it onto the coin, yeah. So on the coin, if you look very carefully at the Popcorn Culture logo, you will see at the very bottom there's the numbers 133 printed into the base of it.
Yeah.
And that is a reference to episode number 133 of The Pop, which I'm pretty sure is the episode where you gave a group of clues that corresponded to shoe size.
Yeah, okay. So this was I was so happy with the way I came up with this one, and I couldn't believe how quickly people solved it. But so the episode was Get Nude, and the numbers were 32, 153, like 0, 4, 5, 66. And so 66 is obviously 99 upside down.
Right.
So what these numbers corresponded to was if you just typed them in a row in a calculator, like an old school calculator, and then flipped it upside down, it said shoe size.
Yes.
So it was like, oh, so you had to like put it upside down. So people figured that out so quick. So if you look at my shoe on the coin, there is a 12 on it. And like, so the idea would have been like at some point you like online, you would have been on a website and it would have been like, you know, like the clue might have said like, you know, get nude and calculate the numbers. And that would have been like a very vague clue unless, you know, but it would direct you to that episode. And then the calculate would have been a clue about how to solve it.
Yes.
But, and then you'd have had the coin to reference what the shoe size was.
Yes. But as ever, I feel like this was a situation where I think that like we were all having so much fun concocting the scenario in our heads while no one was having any idea how to execute it at all.
Right. So we didn't have a grand execution like plan. It was like, yeah, this will be fun when it works out. And just sort of in the end, it did, so obviously I just want to let you guys know because you guys did such a good job solving what so many of them were supposed to be. And if there weren't solves, the idea was that we would, like, as you went through the whatever the riddles were, you'd be able to use the unsolved, like the episodes with numbers that were just nonsense as like ways to like multiply the first and fifth number together to get the answer or something.
Right.
And that would be like the passcode to the next room or something like that. Anyway, it did not end up panning out the way it did, and we were so far behind on the coins, and we really needed to get those out. So I just wanted to, first of all, thank everybody for participating and figuring out what some of them meant, because some of them were nonsense, and just lift the weight off of your shoulders, which might have been, what do I do? How am I missing something? No, you're not. You guys solved as much as there was to solve, and this was our attempt at a fun game that that we failed at.
So this is the thing because I feel like it was a great like forward, but like this is one of those where like if you and I ever like a lot of times I try to think to myself like where would our career take us if it did take like a left or a right turn, you know, just at some point in time. And one of the things I feel like I come back to a lot is the original concept for the movie that you and I pitched called 27 Butts.
27 Butts.
27 Butts.
A holiday classic.
Yes, no doubt. Just your good old fashioned like holiday chaotic.
Holiday hijinks, 27 family members sharing one toilet.
I know.
Yeah.
But the thing in my mind has always sort of been like, okay. Like if we were to go from what we do and the way that we like look at movies and look for hints and look for details and Easter eggs and like, you know, unfinished plot lines or plot holes, you know, it's like it's like we would have to take everything that we've always done and honor it by incorporating games into everything we've ever created.
Absolutely.
And I feel like at that scale, it would be like, this is where you do it. Like,
right.
It's like this would be so cool. So I feel like, you know, it was a big learning experience. And I felt like the good news is that like, while we were doing all of this, it was always only ever something that we were like, only if you were really, really, really invested, would you ever figure it out in the first place. Like it was never meant, like the product was never meant to be like a game. It was only ever going to be a game if you wanted it to be a game.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, this feels like and so it makes me so curious too, because like, yeah, obviously like whenever you are consuming content, like it goes back to that original question I posed, which is just like, has there ever been a point in time where, because it's interesting to me to imagine, to try to get into the head of a writer of any piece of fiction and think that they're like, I'm leaving like a little trail here. It doesn't actually like where it goes. Like I know where it goes. I know the rest of this character's story.
Right.
They don't.
Right.
You know?
Like in developing this character, I knew all this about them, and that helped me inform the decisions they make. And through interactions, you might pick up on it, but the main character would never have any reason to know it. So
right.
you the reader probably won't. It just helped me write it more believably.
It terrifies me though, because I feel like there would be so much of me that like every single word that I put to page, as like if I were the person writing, it's like I would want every single thing to be carefully like selected and placed, and it's like it's there for a reason, and the only reason that they say this one thing is for a reason. It's like whether or not that reason is fleshed out in the story itself, or whether or not it's just like fleshed out in my mind, is like the two different questions there. Like that's like the dichotomy that I can never decide between, because like I would never want someone to be like, yeah, why does this person say this one thing? Why, like, so right now, for example, I've been like rereading The Hunger Games, which I feel like I have a whole mess to talk about, but just for example, but like, you know, the character of Madge, like the mayor's daughter who gives like Katniss the original pen and stuff. Like, I feel like you learn some details about the character of Madge. And I don't know that like Madge ever ends up being like so fully fleshed out as like an obvious reason why like Madge in particular exists, unless it's supposed to be sort of like some representation of like, you know, even amongst the districts, the royalty of the districts are still like, you know, in opposition of the capital. And
Madge is an interesting one, because like she's like Katniss is like one of her only friends after she wins the first games, and she did originate the Mockingjay pin, and it does like represent like, oh, she's one of the best people off in all of District 12 because she's the mayor's daughter and she's still suffering.
Yeah.
You know, in a way. Like, so I think there's a little bit of that. It's a good way to get inside the mayor's house a couple of times.
Sure,
To like, so Katniss can like stumble upon some secret messages in the mayor's office. Like, whoa, what are the odds of that?
Right.
But then like in the movie, Madge is completely written off, and it's just like, oh yeah, Katniss bought the pin and tried to give it to Prim, and then Prim gave it right back, and now it's so meaningful. And it's like, yeah, Madge didn't matter.
Right. Yeah. So there's that. The other one I think is like in the story, Peeta talks about how his father had once like been romantically interested in Katniss's mother.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those things where like I don't know if like the stair step that's going on there is like, oh no, like let's lay the groundwork here. Like let's set it up so that like, you know, Peeta's father didn't end up with Katniss's mother, but now Peeta loves Katniss in the same way or something like that. Or it's like, or are we supposed to like know more about that story? But it's like, it's kind of just like, we know that was true. What do we do with it?
Right.
And so that's like the thing to me, like as an author, where it's like, if you're going to be including these details, it's like, where do they go? Or are you okay with like there being like these things where it's like people might just like left to wonder, or like a breadcrumb that like maybe like
a breadcrumb for Peeta.
Unintentional.
I know. It's like, yeah, do we need a background reason for Peeta to have initially noticed Katniss? Like, probably not.
Yeah, maybe not at all. But we're given one, so it's like that's one of those things. Like maybe from the author's perspective, it's like, well, we need to have like a reason why like Peeta would have liked her but never addressed it, and it sort of dates back, and it has more meaning than just like having noticed her from across the schoolyard. So
it wasn't just that she's a pretty girl,
right? Exactly. Yeah. So it's like maybe like also if like Peeta is supposed to be like the second coming of his father, and Katniss is like it's like maybe this is like that shot, and maybe Katniss's father is supposed to be Gale, and it's like it's like I don't know, like if all of these things are like the different alternate realities. Maybe I'm getting too far into the Hunger Games at this point in time, where it's like everybody's like, I haven't read this book in so long. What are you talking about? But those are definitely I don't know, like to bring it back full circle to our coin. It's like, I don't know. How can you? Is it fun to do things like that? Like it feels like who we are at this point in time is to like leave these details.
It does. So just wanted to come clean about that. So the full story of the numbers now. And transition.
Okay, so now that we've changed gears entirely, Jay, over the past weekend, 2 weekends ago, you and I went through and we established a place for a garden to exist in your yard. And this past weekend, I believe that you actually went out and constructed a fence of sorts.
Yes, I did, Ben. It was the fence was an interesting barrier for me, like in my mind, because like it is the sort of home construction project that always feels like like unattainable to my like skill set in a way.
Okay.
Like it's just not like I've never like had to go build a fence, and I'm like thinking about how am I gonna do it? What am I gonna make it out of? How is it like? What if I make it and it's like not effective? But like also knowing that I have set off already down a path that requires it's not like one where I can just ignore it,
Sure.
Like given my sunflower experience last year with Bazooka Jack, like I know that the garden necessitates a fence. I can't just like, I can't like even think like, well, I probably won't get rabbits,
Right.
Like, I can't think that.
You will get
I
rabbits.
will get rabbits. There are rabbits in my yard frequently. Even this weekend, as I was bringing tools out there, I like had to shoo a rabbit out of my yard.
Oh, wow.
Like I know they are there, and now I'm growing carrots. The things like rabbits stereotypically love the most.
Right. Yeah. That's like, hilarious that you thought about the carrots specifically.
Yeah, I'm like I it's not one where I can just think like it probably won't happen, because I know it will. And not only that, like since last week, since just planting the cucumbers and like the onions, like stuff is already beginning to sprout up.
Right.
So I'm like, I know not only is it something I have to do, but it is something I basically have to do like this weekend, because it like who knows how much stuff is gonna. I mean, many people know, but like who knows how long before the problem really presents itself in a meaningful way.
Right.
Like I have some time before stuff grows, but maybe not a ton of time.
Right. And then also, not to mention, we're just typically like, just busy in general. So like, like having an available weekend day where you have the time and energy available to dedicate to a particular task, especially when there's a timeline on the clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so it's like one of those things like I've pre-committed myself to doing before really figuring out how I'm going to do it, because last week we already tilled the land and planted the stuff. So like stuff's already in motion. So you pretty much have to do it. And not only do you have to do it, but it's like you need to do it, or that day is going to have been in vain. And you need to do it well, or not only is that day going to have been in vain, your future harvests will be in vain, and the day you spent building the fence will have been in vain.
Right.
You know,
right.
it's like, if you don't do a good job at something you have never done before, like, the consequences will ripple across your present, future, and past. You know?
that is hilarious. If I don't build this right now, then yeah. But no, it's a really, really, really good point. Like, it's interesting. Like, whenever, and I always refer to it as being like pot committed, which is a reference to like poker, where it's like, if you start like bidding up the pot and you realize like pretty far in that there's a high probability that somebody else has a better hand, but you've already put in, 100 tokens into the middle of the thing. It's kind of like, I sort of need to see it through at this point in time, because there's a chance they don't have that better hand than me.
Right.
And I could still win with my pair of twos. But also,
right. Like, if I fold now, then I call my own bluff.
Right. Yeah. If I fold now, then basically, like, I have contributed to a pot that I have no chance to win.
Right.
And therefore, I must see it through.
I must see it through. And in fact, I need to double down and really send the message that I have the best cards.
The best cards, yeah. I have the full house.
I have the full house.
And yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right, because like that's the other big thing that I have become, now, like, as a parent and everything, and time being so much more valuable as well. It's like, any time that you dedicate to something, especially if it was like a whole day, or even the fact like you had me over there and like we were both doing it, like we had all the tools out and like, all the rest of everything. It's kind of like, okay, that either goes down in history as like, and I mean, it was time well spent no matter what, because we got to hang out and like our kids got to hang out and like, that's all really good and everything. Good. But, it's also like, you don't want that to have been like just time lost to history. And it's kind of like, oh yeah, remember that day we went and like shoveled a bunch of dirt for no reason?
I know. It's like, it's like, because that's the other thing. It's like, it's not like necessarily time lost per se, but like that back corner did have stuff planted in it, and now it's just a square of dirt.
A square of dirt.
Yeah.
So now we got to try to make it go.
Yeah, got to try and make it go. Got to try and make it go. So that was the dilemma I'm facing. And my initial plan was to, like, my thought was like, chicken wire seems like probably the best thing to go up around this.
Almost exactly what it feels like it's built for.
Yeah, almost exactly what it feels like it's built for, other than, penning in chickens.
Yeah.
Which I guess you could use it for. But then it's like, I'm going through and I'm like trying, I did look up some videos like how to construct like a chicken wire fence. And, you watch the guys online do it, and of course they're like practiced at it, and it comes out so nice and clean and tight and awesome. And you're like, this is not going to be a problem at all. I have most of these tools.
Right.
But I'm going through and I'm like, okay, I probably need some posts to attach the fence to, and then I'll need like one of the things I wouldn't have thought of was like a top wire, like a wire to run across the top that you could like fasten the top of the net or the top of the fence to.
Sure. Yep.
So then you could then like pull it tight on the bottom.
Yep. Which
was like, oh yeah, okay. I wouldn't have thought of that. I can tell you that. And then like I need ways to get the post into the ground. Like, so I need some kind of like post digger, I suppose. And then like even the back two corners of the garden are already fenced in by the fence that just surrounds my yard, but it's not like an effective fence in any way. There's like just wide gaps that are basically bunny sized that you could easily go on or under. So it's like, so I'll still have to like, even though a fence exists, I will have to add another layer of fence around there.
Right.
Like, so anyway, and then I get to Lowe's and like all the stuff I need feels like it is separated. It has been like scattered to the winds of the hardware store.
Right.
What do I need? And I'm getting back there. And unfortunately, we did our Saturday morning half Murph as part of our, Murph in May.
Yeah. The May.
Yeah.
What are we calling this? I feel like we had a good name for it. Or was it, we just call it Maytime Murph?
The Maytime Murph.
The Maytime Murph. Which I will say, and I was so worried about this because we got out there, we did our workout and everything, which went well, check mark.
Yeah.
But it was me and you and Mike and Steven, and we were all talking, and you were telling us about like your plan to go and do this.
Yeah.
And this was like one of those things where I think everybody individually had their own idea as to like how you could make a like rudimentary fence that would still be applicable to like your backyard and everything without being like too difficult to construct.
Yeah.
But like everybody's mind went to a slightly different scenario. And so like Mike is like, well, you could try and do like this and this and this. And then Steven's like, or you could try this. And then I was like, oh, but hey, have you considered? And I was like, we've gone way too far.
Yeah.
Like I was like,
and it devolved into joking at some point, and I was like, oh, it's turning into not helpful at all. But everyone landed on a problem I had arrived at earlier too, which is like, what are you gonna do about a door? And I was like, yes, I don't know what to do about the door yet.
Right.
I know how to I think I can get towards wrapping a wall of fencing around my garden, but then how will I get in the garden? Will it keep me out?
Right. I was too successful.
I was too successful. It's keeping me out. It better keep the rabbits out.
Yeah.
You know, which is like, even when I was like thinking about it, I was like, honestly, I'll solve that later because I don't need to harvest anything until this all stuff grows. I can water it from outside the fence.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
obviously might need to get in there to like weed or plant more stuff. But anyway, while we're leaving, Steven tells me that he has like a post driver at his house, and literally what I thought he meant was like one of those tools you have to like dig a hole in the ground to like plant a post.
Oh yes. Right. Yep.
Like it's got like basically two sharp points at one end and like, you know, two holes, and you just slam it into the ground, pull them together, make like a very narrow, clean hole to drive a post in. So I'm like, that is fantastic, because I did not want to have to go buy one of those, because I've needed them exactly one day in my entire life, and it's today.
Right.
So I'll come borrow that from you. When I go to his house and he hands me this like piece of metal, and I was like, cool, what's this? You know?
Right. So what you guys had very different ideas of what this tool looked like.
Of what this tool looked like.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I go to his, and like basically what he's got is a very contained sledgehammer.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just like a tube of metal that has two handles on the side, and then like one very heavy end. So one end is open that you would put over the top of the stake, and then the other end is closed, and it is very heavy. And so you just put the open end on top of the stake, and then just lift it up and drop it on, or slam it down on top of the stake. And it's effectively like having a perfect slam with a sledgehammer every time.
Right.
So it's like one of those things where you stare at it and you're like, this is such ingenuity and so basic and so effective. I cannot believe like how like basic and useful this object is.
I feel like this is sometimes the case, like when it comes to like just anything agriculture related at all. It's like, well, that's exactly perfect.
That's exactly
that
it does what it does.
Exactly what we needed to do. And it's like, it seems so simple, but yet it's so useful.
Yeah. So like he just like as we're leaving is like, I've got that if you want to come borrow it. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. Cause then no big deal. And like receiving this tool and realizing it was a different tool than what I imagined, like changed my entire plan.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So it was honestly awesome that I went to Stevens to pick up this tool, because not only did I pick up the stake driver itself, but his fiance like has like a flower farm, basically, and so everywhere around his like backyard and front yard has basically just been converted into various flower beds or vegetable beds or whatever. So there's lots of different like fencing examples just to like see in person.
Right, it's just like a fencing museum.
It was like a fencing museum, and I was just walking around. I was like, okay, all right, yes, this is giving me like, I had an idea for what I wanted to do. This is like helping me like visualize it in a different way.
Right.
So it was good. So my initial thing was to have like a very big like fence post that I then ran chicken wire from. And what I ended up leaving Stevens with the idea for was to have several smaller wooden posts that I could use the stake driver for.
Okay.
And then instead of using chicken wire, just having like basic like bird netting that would wrap around, which one was cheaper and way less heavy and easy to maneuver. So very glad I made that. Same was true with the post and stuff. So I ended up like just staking putting several wooden stakes in there. Then this was so fun is that like Beth was helping me do it. So she has no idea how to build a fence either. So we're just sort of out there figuring it out as we go.
I love this.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah. It was like, we were sort of joking as we were doing it, but we're just sitting out there listening to music. It was like, this is kind of like a date. And it was like, yeah, it is. Like the kids were inside, entertaining themselves, and we're out here building a fence around our garden.
Jay. Yes. Yeah. All of the above.
So it was so fun.
Take that idea and run with it as fast as you can.
Exactly.
I'm always down.
Yeah. And then I also I bought a staple gun, which is like an object I've been afraid to like even hold. I feel like this is a dangerous thing. This is so easy to shoot a two-pronged metal fork at someone with.
Well, it always reminds me of there was the moment when I was a kid, and I remember Mom had this like heavy-duty metal green stapler.
Yeah.
And you could like, you could either like staple paper with it while it was like in like the closed position.
Yeah.
Or you could like open it up into like
bulletin board something.
Yeah. Like machine gun mode.
Yeah.
For the stapler. Of course, it doesn't actually like really like projectile at all because it's just a stapler. But I remember looking at it as a small child and literally like being like, how does this thing work anyway? funny way. And so I'm holding the stapler in my hand, like with the staples facing me.
Oh no.
And I push my thumb square into it and I pull back and the staple has just been perfectly stapled into my thumb.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember being like just this like dawning comprehension as to what I just did and being like,
yeah. I think I was sitting right next to you when it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm that was how I felt about it. And then I was like pulling it out of the bag when I got home. Beth was like, I've always been afraid of those things. And I was like, yeah, they're kind of a scary object.
yeah. I wonder if there's like a term for like fear of staplers, because it's like, is this like one of those like oddly commonly or like shared like feelings or beliefs or something, but like nobody's ever really talked about it, so nobody realizes that everybody else feels the same way.
Yeah, right. Like maybe, but like it's not just that, but then like you go to use it and it's like a very like thunk sound.
Oh yeah, that was loud in my ears.
Sorry about that.
No,
Sorry,
right.
headphone users.
Right.
Yeah, it's like a very loud sound, but it's also extremely satisfying how effective it works.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're out there, and then I had the existing fence, so I could staple the netting to that, and then we would pull it tight, and we'd run our top wire, and then I had bought a bunch of stakes too. Then we would like leave some slack at the bottom so that we could then stake the bottom down such that you couldn't like scooch under the fence either.
Nice.
Yeah,
you guys are thinking ahead.
Yeah, that was fun. Now the only issue we came into was that at some points we were like on a bit of a hill, so like the bottom like only maybe like grazed the ground.
Okay.
In which case it was like harder to like stake it down.
Okay.
But even that, I felt like it was interesting to me, like what kind of creativity comes to you when you're like building stuff like this.
Yes.
So I would take like a garden stake, which is kind of like just a very long U,
right?
And I would just bend one end upwards. So then you've got like the initial U, and then it would come down and kind of curve back up again.
Okay.
Right? Does that make sense? If you can follow the shape in your mind?
Yeah, I can follow it.
So I would put the long U through the fence into the ground. Right. And then the new U that I had created would rest against the ground.
Okay.
Because it was like further up, so it like covered the slack between the fence and the ground. Then you take a different garden stake and like stake that one down.
Okay.
Right? Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
It makes sense. So then you're still pulling the fence down, so that it can't be scooched under. So that, I don't know. I felt I was like, I can't believe it. I felt like this is a pretty good solution here.
I know. No, I honestly, I feel like this is like, and I'm sure that like, if you're around people who are handy on the reg, it's like these are things that come very like naturally and quickly to them. But I do feel like one of the joys of building literally anything is like finding yourself like facing like a small problem like this and being like, wait a second, I am smart.
Yeah.
And you have one of those moments and it works and you're like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah, so we had that. And then as for the door, which I was like, I don't know how to like construct a gate with hinges or anything like that that's gonna like fasten. But basically what we did was just like left a bunch of the netting between two fence posts and just put some nails in one side, and then you can just pull it taut as you close it. So it's extremely rudimentary, and that particular section of the yard is not like staked to the ground, but I feel like I've like covered like that's like I guess playing the odds a little bit, like, okay, this 5% of the fence bottom is a little bit weaker, but hopefully it's still enough.
Right, like will they find?
Yeah, will they find the weak spot?
Will they find the weak spot?
Yeah.
My suspicion is that if they do, then you will trap bunnies inside of your little container there.
That is probably true too.
And then you've accidentally built a bunny trap.
Exactly. I'm almost afraid that I've built like a deer trap too or something. Like we're gonna go out there and there's gonna be a deer out there one day or something.
Goodness. Well, so I don't know if I've ever told the story before, and it's possible that I have. But anyway, I live like in the city, so like I am not necessarily surrounded by like woods at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the only trees that are on my property at all are like ornamental trees. So
right.
Like, there's not really anything there. Like I don't have like forest or anything, but there was one night where we were watching a movie and Chewy was out in the yard, our dog, and he is just barking like mad, and I'm like Chewy, what is going on, bud? Like, I mean, because like it's not uncommon for them to bark at somebody who's like walking by the house or whatever. Like our yard's fenced in, so like they'll typically, like if someone is like walking by, they'll go and like bark at them as they go by or whatever. And it's like, well, I wish that didn't happen, but it does anyway. But this was like he was like going ballistic, and I was like, what is up with Chewy? And I run outside, and standing in my yard is like an 8-point buck.
Whoa!
And I was like, holy butts.
Holy
Like,
bucks.
Yes. Holy bucks. And so I'm like stunned because like, standing in my yard, I mean, it's like
Right.
this is not common.
Yeah.
Like this
Like-
is such a big animal in my yard. And it's like, and my yard is fenced in, which means it jumped the fence to be there.
Right.
And then I literally watched it and just like literally like it saw me, turned its head and like went and jumped clean over the fence. No problem at all. And I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that was wild.
It is sometimes like, yeah, you like it's amazing to me that such a large animal, like with the antlers and everything, showed up in your yard, because where we live, deer crossing the road, big problem.
Yes, it
like
is,
there,
yeah.
it is not infrequent that you might see like someone who has hit a deer or the remains of the deer or something off on the side. There's deer crossing things all over the place.
Yeah.
And very often, you will see the deer like off to the side of the road, and you're like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
absolutely.
be very careful."
Right.
But like, never are they bucks. It's always the does.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
this would be the type of thing like, like we're not hunters or anything like that, but I suspect that if you were a hunter and you encountered it, it would be like a pretty big day for
You'd have
you.
been like, "What?"
Yeah, this is like a remarkable creature to witness at all.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got to see it, so I thought that was
Just
pretty
right-
cool.
it presented itself to you, Ben. Man.
Do you think that means something?
maybe you're like the Lord of the Forest or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Yeah, absolutely. New title. Changing. No, I'm no longer Buzzy Bee. I'm now the Lord of the Forest.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Oh man. I remember one time, I think you were driving, we were in your truck, and like that it was just down some like back country road, and all of a sudden, like, two bucks, one was chasing the other, just came sprinting full force across the road, and like you had to keep driving, but I was able to like watch the pursuit, and they were just at full speed doing it. Was definitely like some sort of like territorial dominance kind of like battle waging in
Right.
nature. And I remember thinking like, what did I just see? That was insane. That was like
This-
not only do I never see a buck, but that was two of them, and they were like fighting, like, that was crazy.
Dude, this is what blows my mind all the time about like any nature documentary ever.
Yeah.
Because it's like, not only have these people like, photographers, videographers, whatever, like made it into the forest where they have like waited for these creatures to, come to like then film.
Yeah.
But the fact that they ever film them doing things that are like exciting or rare or unique or something. It's like like catching like a mating ritual or like a rivalry type of thing going down. It's like, what level of being that, it's like you don't think enough about the person who has been like living in the forest with all their photography equipment for weeks waiting for this to happen, just so that there is like documentation of it out there in the world somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. So I feel like that's like one of those things where it's like you like witness like a little like, I mean, minus the fact that like there's a road and we were in a vehicle, which certainly takes the nature element out of it a little bit, but it's
Yeah.
like you were witnessing like a thing happen.
Yeah.
That probably does happen all the time, but like still, how often do you get to see it?
Pretty crazy.
I know.
Crazy.
So basically what I'm saying is this is our official application for National Geographic for their videography role.
There you go. Right. I saw two bucks once. So
So
go ahead and hire me.
Right, yeah.
I might have a, deer trap in my yard.
deer and or bunnies.
Deer and or bunny trap. We'll
Right,
see if it
right.
remains to be seen. Hopefully neither.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am growing carrots, so
I am growing carrots and
Highly-
cucumbers and onions. So
highly suspect that we'll have
Yeah.
plenty abound of bunnies.
yes,
Yeah.
right. I know. Whew.
Shoo.
Man,
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, congrats on your fence.
Thanks.
It sounds truly remarkable.
Yeah, I hope it works. This is the other thing, is like I so badly want it to work, but like in the meantime, I just keep looking out the window and I feel like such pride staring at my little fence. I'm like, look what I made. Look what we did. Look what we did.
With my own two
You
hands.
see this? You see we made this fence? Look
Yeah.
at that. It's keeping buddies out, hopefully.
Hopefully. I am so excited to see
I know.
where this goes. Okay, so I actually think this is like an interesting place for a small or mild transition, because Alice and I were having this conversation, and we use the term mental camps, although I have no idea if that's actually an official term. But the idea is sort of like someone who whenever you talk about like someone who makes it to be an Olympian, for example, usually there's like this like combination of things that had to exist, which is that like if you were going to be like an Olympic distance like what is it, ski jumper? What is that term called?
I think ski jumping is that
ski jumping.
Yeah,
we'll go with ski jumping.
Well, you know what I mean. You know they go down. They're flying like squirrels.
Yeah, that one. But like, in order to be the person who eventually makes it to be like a contender for a gold medal in the Olympic Games, like you will have needed to have not only had all of the necessary talent, which is going to be probably pretty rare.
Yeah.
To have the physical capability of someone who can go on to be an Olympian in the first place, you need to live somewhere where this is even like on the table as
like
an
a way
activity.
to practice.
Yeah, a way to practice, and a way to even discover in the first place.
Yeah, that you're good at it.
And then also the like resources and commitment and contributions of like probably because most Olympians, I suspect, start their activity at a fairly young age, which means a certain amount of cooperation from a parent, but then also like being in a place that has enough of a populace that does this particular activity that you have good enough coaching available to make it a reality.
Right.
So it's like how many like distance ski jumpers are born in Kansas,
Right.
But like, it's like this person has the perfect build, the perfect everything. If they had discovered at age 4 that they could soar through the air like a flying squirrel, then they would have been like the most dominant
They would have done it
to ever be. But instead, they played Little League Baseball.
Right.
Because that's the activity that was more common in this particular area. So like what ends up going on, and what I find to be very fascinating, is all of the completely untapped like talent potential that exists out there in the world. And one of the ones I think we actually use your wife Beth as a primary example of this, because and we've talked about this a little bit before, but like in high school, you and I were not jocks, I would not say, but we did do year-round sports of some kind,
Right?
But not really. We played some soccer, but not many ball sports, which I feel like usually the group of athletes that kind of get that like jock signifier or whatever.
Right. That seems like that often comes from baseball, football, and basketball more than soccer.
Yeah, maybe so, depending on your school.
Depending on your school. That could have just been our school, but I don't know. That's how it never, well, I don't even want to say that. I felt like there were people on the soccer team who carried that attitude with them, and they were the worst. But
they were the worst.
Like, why? Why would you be like this? That's so, anyway.
I will say I stopped playing soccer because of the other people.
Yeah,
not because of my
was
dislike of soccer.
Yeah.
It was like, man, I don't think I like properly align with all this. But anyway, the point is though is that like it seems like they're like the tribes or the camps or whatever that end up getting built is that you've sort of got like the people who do like your popular ball sports, aka jocks, and then there's like the marching band, which I would not say are like like exclusive, like you can't like only do one of them or anything, but it does seem like there is like sort of like the marching band camp and then like the footballers camp, if you will, and maybe those are mutually exclusive because they would happen at the same time.
Sure.
Usually. So maybe that's a way to look at it. But like Beth was of course in the marching band, and I feel like she typically saw us as like air quotes athletes. But now as an adult, I would say that like your wife Beth is more of an athlete than maybe any of the rest of us are.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, she is the one consistently going on distance runs more than pretty much anyone in the family.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And like she has like coaching for it and goals, and she's committed, and like
she's setting PRs and getting faster.
Exactly. Yeah. So like all of like the trappings are all there. But like it's like one of these things where like if like for some reason somehow some way same like the distance ski jumper in Kansas who like doesn't have the hills or the snow or the opportunity or the exposure or the coaches or whatever. It's like somehow some way Beth made her way through high school without ever discovering that she has this talent for running.
Right.
And it's like I think it's so interesting to me, in the way that you were talking about like your pride in building something was kind of making me feel this way, because like you're one of the smartest people that I know. And
thank you.
Absolutely. And I know that you've always contributed a lot of that energy to like a lot of your creative endeavors, into like your strategizing, like different types of like gameplay and stuff like that. And it's always occurred to me that like while I have had some exposure throughout my life to building things, I was always like, if there is any part of me that has an edge over Jay in this particular particular field, it is not because I am smarter. It is just because I have had more exposure.
Right.
And it's like, if Jay enters this world at all, I will quickly be surpassed.
I don't know about that, but
no, I am 1,000% sure of this being true. But like, it's so cool to me because it's like, I think what it means though is that like, if you do this in your mind, if you decide that you're not someone who belongs in some type of like skill camp or something, or
Right.
like that is in some way like other, or like, you know, I do this, therefore I don't do that. It's like, I think you can like dissolve, if you dissolve those walls, you might be blown away at what you're capable of in the best way.
Right. Like you build borders in your mind, but like if you just like try like a borderless mind is like very, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Like maybe more ideal.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's a greater deal of flexibility or even like potential opportunity,
Right.
that could lay on the table all of a sudden.
Yeah, so like back when I worked at the concert venue, bingo, there was sometimes for whatever reason you might you'd be broken into, you know, teams with other departments for either some sort of like, you know, camaraderie or whatever, or, you know, everyone needs to be on a committee for some reason just to put it on your resume or whatever.
Right.
But so sometimes, you know, you'd be like, you know, it'd be like me and it'd be like, you know, Cindy from finance and Jody from HR, and, you know, that's our team or whatever.
Right.
And it'd be like, okay, so we need like a sort of, what's our creative solution for this? Then be like, oh, you know, I just do the numbers. I'm not very creative, but like 1,000, and you know, they'd be like looking to me like, what are we going to do? And it would, but like, I'd be like, I don't know, you know, or, you know, we'd come back to the next meeting and people would have all brought their ideas, and it'd be like, Sydney and Jody had amazing ideas.
Oh,
you
sure,
know?
sure.
It's like, you think you're not creative, but you are.
Right,
Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yes, no, absolutely. I feel like our own mom, I don't know if creativity would be the area that she would say this in or anything, but I feel like she would absolutely like, you know, we have like our dad who's like an on-air TV talent, who's almost like your like classic, you know, like extrovert, especially like if you're just looking at him like as like a character study. And then our mom, who like grew up like with like numbers and is a CPA and like understands like the financial side of things. And I feel like they could easily find themselves doing this exact thing that you just described,
Right.
which is like, it's like one of these feels like they might be like the creative aspect, and one of them feels like they might be like the numbers aspect, like analytical versus creative or something. But it's like they're both so good at both, you know, but like I think that because they live so close to someone who like lives one lifestyle or the other, it's very easy to think like, oh no, that's more their territory,
Right.
you know. And so sometimes I think that's something where like it's just it more than anything else, I feel like it excites me, because I feel like it's like you could still yet discover something that you've never even considered trying, and realizing that not only you love it, but you're great at it.
Right. And like all that's maybe held you back is your own like mental walls, or some kind of like fear or like belief that that's not who you are based on something you decided about yourself when you were too young to have made such a decision.
Right. Yeah. And the other really big one to me that I end up finding is very interesting is like I could use the example of like rock climbing, for example. Like growing up, you know, at a young age, I definitely I remember, I think I've told the story about doing like physical fitness testing and realizing I was like good at pull-ups and stuff. So like rock climbing could have seemed like a very obvious like area for me to go and use this like predisposed talent,
Yeah.
if you will. It's like I can probably transfer that ability because I have the ability to move my own body weight effectively.
Right.
However, it was like, even like when you and Beth started going, because you guys got me into it in the first place, I remember like knowing that like when you go to a rock climbing gym that there are like routes pre-assembled, and I was like, I don't really want to do the routes. Like I just want to go and like treat it like a jungle gym.
Right. I just want to climb. I just want to get to the top of the wall.
I want to, yeah, exactly. I don't care about like making a special movement or finding the crux of a problem or anything like that. And what I think so frequently is the case is that if there is a large group of people that has a lot of fun doing an activity, they're not wrong. They've just discovered it, and they've like learned how to have fun with it. But I feel like it's like anything, like Doctor Who is another one of these for me, like where it's like, for whatever reason, despite the fact that it's like so adjacent to so many of the other like fandoms that we discuss, it's like right there. And I've never even touched it with a 10-foot pole, and something about it has never felt right to me as like something that I could see myself being into. But I'm 100% sure that I'm wrong at the same time.
Right.
It's like all these people don't love it for no reason.
Right. Yeah.
and so all of this is to say is that, one, you might be more capable of something than you think, and two, even if you think you're not interested in something, you might actually be if you gave it a shot.
Right.
I don't even know who this PSA is for. I just it's like I feel like there's maybe
Whoever needs to hear it.
Whoever needs to hear it.
Yeah.
Maybe a small piece of like where I can gain some fulfillment from doing our show here is like, if you could encourage somebody to try something that they've never tried before and they find a new lifelong passion as a result of it, it's like, I want that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's just a good feeling. Even
That's a
if it's
good feeling.
one person, it's like, boom. Just provided hours of enjoyment to someone who just turned over a stone they never considered turning over.
Never
before.
considered it. Never considered
Wow.
it.
Wow. Good times to be on the pop, guys. Good times.
It is.
If you do have any feedback for us, you can you can send me an email to popcornculturepod@gmail.com. I do appreciate all of your feedback, and I do read all of your emails. So be sure to send me any if you have any thoughts about today's shows or any of the past shows. Also, if you would like to support us on Patreon, we are in the final weeks where you can still gain access to the exclusive quarterly merch Deneen coffee mug, which is going to have the Popcorn Culture logo on there. As a reminder, these are all individually handmade coffee mugs, and the people over at Deneen are like true artisans of their craft. Like the end product, Jay is actually holding one right now if you're watching it visually. They're just like such sturdy mugs. They got good hand feel. That I don't know. I mean, it's like a true blue piece of pottery. So if you'd like to check it out, we really like these. The mug itself is going to be like a mint green color, and it's going to have like almost like a cinnamon colored like dripping across the top.
Cinnamon
I know.
colored,
It won't taste like cinnamon, but it'll look like cinnamon.
Right.
I think they're going to be absolutely beautiful. So I'm super excited about that. If you want to check them out, patreon.com/popcornculture. Otherwise, until next time,
Pop, pop.